Before antibiotics became a household word, war was a breeding ground for infection, and infection was often deadlier than the bullet itself. Picture a medic in 1942, crouched in a muddy trench with rain soaking the earth around him, a comrade's leg torn open and already darkening with bacteria. There was no penicillin in his bag, no sterile surgical kit, no modern antiseptic wipes. All he had were his hands, some field knowledge passed down through generations, and the raw materials of nature. That was the reality for countless medics across Europe, Africa, and the Pacific. Long before medicine caught up with the horrors of modern warfare, soldiers turned not to pharmaceuticals, but to the earth itself. Soil-based poultices, herbal tinctures, acidic washes, and natural antiseptics became their lifeline when the odds were stacked against them. What makes this forgotten chapter so astonishing is that modern science now confirms much of what those medics were doing by instinct. They weren't just improvising out of desperation. They were using real biochemical defenses. Vinegar, salt, thyme, rosemary, tea tree, eucalyptus. Long before the scientific community fully understood how powerful these natural compounds could be. Today, we're rediscovering one of those lost formulas, a simple antiseptic mixture made from battlefield ingredients that served as an infection barrier before penicillin reached the front in mass quantities. And by the time you finish hearing this story, you'll not only understand the science behind it, you'll know exactly how to recreate a safe, modern version yourself. When World War II erupted, penicillin technically existed, but it was nowhere near widespread. Only a handful of doses were available in 1942, and they were guarded closely. It wasn't until 1943 and 1944 that mass production finally made it accessible to frontline medics. Until then, infections like gangrene, tetanus and sepsis routinely turn minor wounds into fatal ones. A cut from shrapnel, a puncture from barbed wire, even a blister rubbed raw in the jungle could kill a man if bacteria took hold. There was no time to wait for supplies and no option to send every wounded soldier back to a hospital miles away. Medics had to act immediately. They drew on knowledge inherited from earlier wars, the trench doctors of World War I, the battlefield nurses of the Crimean War, and even the practices of ancient armies like the Romans. All of them relied on naturally occurring acids, salts and herbs with antimicrobial properties. A field antiseptic didn't need to be pleasant. It only needed to stop bacteria long enough for a soldier to get to safety. And so the formula was simple. Use an acid to kill microorganisms, use salt to draw moisture away from infected tissue, and use herbs to deliver compounds strong enough to inhibit bacterial growth. The base of this wartime remedy was nearly always vinegar. Vinegar contains acetic acid, a natural antibacterial agent that disrupts the cell walls of dangerous microbes. Even at low concentrations, acetic acid slows bacterial growth and helps prevent infections from spreading. To this base, medics added salt, not just for cleansing, but because salt pulls moisture out of tissue through osmosis. Drying out a wound was one of the most reliable ways to stop bacteria from multiplying. Then came herbs, and these varied depending on where the battle was taking place. In Europe, medics used thyme, rosemary and sage, plants loaded with powerful antiseptic compounds like thymol and rosmarinic acid. In the Pacific, American and Australian soldiers crushed tea tree leaves or eucalyptus, both rich in naturally occurring antimicrobial chemicals like terpenen-4-ol and cineol. A typical battlefield wash might be made by diluting vinegar with boiled water, adding a handful of crushed herbs, letting the mixture steep briefly, then straining it through cloth. Salt was stirred in last. The mixture could be poured onto wounds used to rinse surgical tools or soaked into strips of cloth that were laid across injuries. It stung terribly, and honestly, soldiers hated it, but it kept infection at bay when nothing else could. Decades later, scientific studies confirmed the logic behind every ingredient. Acetic acid kills Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which is, one of the most dangerous wound-infecting bacteria known. Salt is still used in medical saline for cleaning wounds. Essential oils from thyme, rosemary and sage remain subjects of modern antibiotic research for their powerful antimicrobial activity. It turns out that medics in 1942 weren't just guessing. They were applying biochemical principles that researchers would only formally recognize years later. They were practicing what we now call soil-based medicine, healing methods rooted in the earth itself. If you want to recreate a safe, modern educational version of this lost formula, the process is, honestly, pretty straightforward. Start with 1 cup of vinegar, white or apple cider, mixed with 1 cup of boiled cooled water. Add a teaspoon of salt and stir until it's dissolved. Next, crush a small handful of dried thyme and rosemary, or, if you have them, tea tree leaves or eucalyptus leaves. Add these to the liquid, let it steep for, say, 10 to 15 minutes, and then strain everything through a clean cloth. The result is a mild antiseptic wash that's suitable for cleaning small scrapes, insect bites, or even tools when you're camping or away from modern supplies. It isn't a replacement for medical-grade disinfectants, but it's a practical emergency solution drawn straight from history. For anyone interested in survival skills, this isn't just old knowledge, it's essential knowledge. A small container of salt, a few dried herbs, and a compact packet of vinegar tablets in a preparedness kit can replicate what medics used when the world was falling apart. It takes almost no space, yet it gives you the foundation to create a reliable antiseptic wash anywhere. And on a deeper level, this lost formula reminds us that nature was humanity's first pharmacy. Long before laboratories, we learned how to harness acids, salts, and essential oils to keep ourselves alive. The medics who rediscovered these principles didn't do it for theory. They did it in the dirt, the mud, and the fire of battle. Their improvisation saved lives then, and the knowledge can still serve us today. If this look into wartime healing sparked your curiosity, or if you believe survival means remembering the methods that worked before modern medicine, then subscribe to The Untold Battle. Share this video with someone who loves real battlefield ingenuity. Because history isn't just something we study, it's something we use.